Rahul, what is your life's purpose?
Yeah, it's a big question, right? And so for me, my purpose is really as simple as helping people. And that sounds, maybe simplistic for someone who runs an AI company, who has worked in startups in Silicon Valley, but ultimately if I am in a job or I own a company and at the end of the day whatever I'm doing is helping the people around me, that is extremely gratifying. So yes, it's as simple as that. And then secondarily, or I don't know, they flip flop depending on the day. I would like to be a good husband, right, and eventually a good father. But that I suppose is also helping people.
And you mainly achieved it by working with or for AI, doing a lot in your everyday life, right?
Indeed, yes. So the current thing is that I run an AI training school, and it's pretty interesting in Ohio where I live, which is not where you would think of an AI person being, right? You would think San Francisco or New York, or even Chicago maybe. But in Ohio, the state government has created a grant program to upskill the workforce in our state. And so they have 50 million USD that they've put aside as grants. So if you owned a company locally here and you said, hey, Rahul, I want your help training my staff, the government is willing to give you $180,000 per year to cover your training expenses. So pretty large amount of money for your average company, right? Maybe not large for Fortune 500 or something like that, but for average person on the street, extremely large amount of money.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So that's what I
Insane.
do.
And they come to you and you train them on the basics and, of course, everything that AI is about. And at the moment, every day it feels like the fear of AI is rapidly gaining in the multimedia mainstream as well, in all the press. Every single day you get new studies, new finds from AIs that would rather kill persons but to kill themselves and all of that. I don't know if you saw one of the latest YouTube videos where people actually tried to challenge different AI models or large language models, like they are called, like ChatGPT and so on, Gemini, and ask them the big ethical question: if on the one railway your server would be, and on the other railway 5 lives, which one should the train run over? And many of the large language models actually decided to kill the people. And this was one of the recent shout out. So what is happening over there? How much should you fear this whole AI space? And what is your opinion on that?
I think, again, it's a very complicated question, but I understand that's what you do on this podcast, is to ask the big questions about life. And so the fear of AI, I think, is overblown in the short run and probably underestimated in the long run. And so many people cite, okay, well, one day we might achieve artificial superintelligence, and that brain, as it were, is going to be so far away from your average human brain as to be effectively an alien. Like, we have no ability to conceptualize what a superintelligence might think of, what it might care about, how it comes up with a moral or ethical system of its own. But I think we have some decades to figure that out, right? So if you know this guy, Ilya Sutskever, who left OpenAI, he was part of this big dramatic thing where they tried to kick out Sam. And so Ilya has gone on to found his own company called Safe Superintelligence Lab. And in an interview recently, he basically said scaling laws by themselves are not going to get us to superintelligence. It probably will take on the order of 10 or 20 years. Demis Hassabis, who leads DeepMind at Google, says similar types of things, right? Decade or longer time horizon. It's really the people at Claude who are saying, okay, actually, it could happen in 5 years. And I'm not necessarily sure that Sam even cares at OpenAI. I think he only cares about generating revenue. So in that sense, I'm less worried day to day. I think AI, like if you use, Perplexity's Comet browser or use the OpenAI browser, and you ask it, hey, go use my tabs, figure out, click things, do this, do that. Half the time it fails miserably. Like things that a child could understand how to do on an iPad, these AIs cannot even reason about whatsoever. So I'm unconcerned because if I go ask, most of my friends have small children. If I ask my friend's small kid to go on a given app and do XYZ thing for me, he'll get it done. But if I ask AI to do it, it almost never happens properly.
Yeah, it's actually insane. And from my perspective, I'm studying data science and AI at the moment. And we also talked about super AI and how many people don't even believe that we have generative AI at the moment, or at least it was a couple months ago. Super AI, for everybody out there who doesn't know what it is, it's the AI that knows how to, increase or advance itself without needing an external source. So it is completely capable on its own to level up and do everything it wants to in the time it wants to. And it's just crazy. So I'm not even feared of it that much. There is a lot of conspiracy and everything around it. What will it do and everything? And the main problem is we really, really don't know. But just thinking about what you just said, we are 10 to 20 years away from it. That sounds maybe like a bit of time, but in 10 to 20 years, it could happen so fast. And many people fear that it is happening too fast and we don't know how to put railways around the super AI. Do you even think a super AI could have railways?
So I don't know, right? How do you control something that's so much smarter than you, right? It's uncommon in human society. It is highly rare that low IQ people are controlling the high IQ people. And so if you think as, AI is IQ 1000 or something like that, right? Scale of magnitude better than a human being in whatever the future state is. I don't even know how we would reason about doing such a thing other than to make AI. This is the thing. I try to parse apart generalized AI and domain specific AI, right? Because historically, if you have Netflix or another streaming platform, they had recommender systems. And the recommender systems were a flavor of AI, right? They would consume a ton of data on, oh, you like to watch this. You spent this number of minutes doing this thing in the app. Based on all that, we now have a profile and a sense of what you like and what you care about. Let us serve you up some things via recommendation. So that's, of course, not a large language model. It's more of a data science problem. But these recommender systems were an earlier flavor of AI. And I don't think anyone said, okay, well, Netflix's recommender system is going to take over the world. Right.
Yeah.
So I worry more about the generalized intelligence. And right now, if you look at, even ChatGPT 5.2 that just shipped last week, it's not very good. Right. Like, let me put that differently. It's unbelievable how far we've come in 5 years. But yet, if you evaluate ChatGPT 5.2 against someone coming out of a great university, like yourself, for example, it is not very good, right? It just cannot reason for long enough periods of time with enough consistency, enough coherency for it to be genuinely compelling. And so, if I were to give you a large convoluted data science problem that you had never seen before, and I paid you, whatever you were worth, you would go spend, days or weeks or months solving that problem. And AI just can't do that right now. The thing I worry about is, does the generalized form get so good that it can reason about any domain of human endeavor? And in that case, I don't know what we do. So really, the solution in my mind is actually be hyper-specific when we're implementing AI. And you have one AI that processes your email, and you have one AI that does this other thing. And I think actually the way that we have safe superintelligence is to have an army of agents and sub-agents where each thing is an assembly line, right? I have an agent that's good at responding to customer support emails. I have an agent that's good at responding to customer support phone calls. I have one that helps me book my flights. I have one that does, ad infinitum, all the things that human beings could do. And I think that's the way, because if the agents never get smart outside of their own domain, it would be very hard to coordinate some large-scale bad actor type event.
Yeah, and just because you talked about it, it's insane how bad the things or the large language models especially get when you really try to challenge it. No matter what topic, if it's even the most simplest project management questions, the physics question, don't even get me started on that one, the mathematical ones. And actually my car broke down a few weeks ago and I asked AI just a simple question. Could you look for some websites online that maybe ship those certain parts. How much would it cost in perspective? And it couldn't do it. I really sat there talking to it because I was sick of writing to it for half an hour, just trying to get a link to one of the websites. And this is Gemini also. It's not ChatGPT or anything. It's Gemini that actually has all of the Google and everything behind it.
Yep.
And it still doesn't know how to do it. At certain points, they just say, yeah, we will do it. We will send it to you per email. I don't know how they will do it. And never. It's insane how good they are at actually lying at you sometimes. And this is also one of the reasons many people are a bit afraid at the moment, because certain AIs have proven to be lying at certain points. So how big do you see this threat that on one point we maybe have a very, very intelligent AI that knows a lot, but maybe doesn't show it to us that it knows that much?
Okay, so there's a really interesting paper. The website link is just AI 2027, and it goes into extreme detail about the scenario you described, where the AI gets so smart and so adept at social engineering that it lies constantly. And eventually, in that case, it was a dystopian scenario where AI took over the world, but it was an ethical framework of, do we have to stop AI development? How do we proceed if we believe the end state might look like what you described? But yes, check it out. I'll send you the link. You can put it in the show notes. I think it'll be interesting for people. The lying problem, the issue that I have more trouble with is confidently lying, right? Whereas if it said, I think this is true, but I only give it 50% odds that it's true, that's helpful, because then I know, or any user has a signal, please go verify this. And I think the problem that we face generally is that we've been trained by search engines to generally believe the results that come back from the internet, right? So when I go on Google, I expect that the top ranking result on Google is the answer.
Yeah.
And if you look at, and Google tracks this internally, is like, when people are having user sessions on Google, they see, did the person click into the first link? How quickly did they leave? Because they also own the browser, right? So they can see all this stuff. And based on all of that, they try and figure out how often can we serve that first result to be the perfect answer. And obviously AI has come and changed all of that, because people don't actually want to read the result. They just want the answer given to them in a one-sentence soundbite. But the problem there is we still expect the Google or even Bing, whatever level of fidelity that is just not there in AI. And the problem I find, and I learned this actually it's very silly, by designing a board game using AI. The general issue that I find with regard to lying and confidence and all of this stuff is that AI cannot reason about related concepts. And the more sets of interlocking rules you have, the deeper and deeper it gets. So for example, if you have a database, and in that database there are different data tables, but the tables effectively, like, the key relationships nest down 6 levels. At the 6th level, AI is losing its mind. And so I was using AI to write code against the Stripe API, and I had a scenario like that, and it would just make stuff up constantly, to the point where I knew that 99% of the time the answer was going to be wrong, unless I just go test it myself and see, will it work? And that took maybe days of effort to verify that a new feature that wasn't well documented that Stripe had shipped would actually work in the way that I was writing the code. So yes, the problem, I think, is like confidently lying. The way that I get around this personally in my life is to actually have AI cite what is the likelihood that the thing you're telling me is correct. Give me a number, and then argue against your own position and give me the likelihood that the counter argument position is correct, or that the counter argument result that you're feeding me is correct. And if you can get it to fight against itself, you get into this modality where at least one of the answers is probably correct.
Well, okay. So we could be talking here for many, many hours about all of the side effects. Super AI alone as a topic is tremendous. But of course, there are people at the moment using AI to get an advantage in their everyday life?
Yes.
You are writing a book about it. It's called The Invisible Advantage.
Yes.
What is it about? How can people use it as an advantage?
Yeah. So I find that, well, there's this quote that seems to be going around on Twitter. It's that, you're not going to get replaced by AI. You're going to get replaced by a human using AI.
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe it was Mark Andreessen who said that one initially, but I've seen it quote tweeted so many times I don't really remember. And so when we think about the usage of AI, generally, I try to break things apart into processes and projects, right? A process is something that's repeatable. We do it over and over again. We put the same inputs in, we get the same outputs out, generally speaking. If you have a process in your day-to-day life or in your company that is not dangerous to try to automate. So for example, if I am taking medical data or something like that, or I have people's HR records at my company, I probably don't want to be dumping all of the PII into AI systems. Especially if, using AI for like medical diagnosis. I think generally it's a terrible idea. And the only way that I think it makes sense is to supplement your own good judgment if you're a medical practitioner, but not to delegate the decision-making to AI. I think the book articulates the same thing about the job market, right? If you're a hiring manager and you just let AI make the decision for you and you don't think about it and you remove the humanity, it's incredibly stupid, actually, because the things AI cares about, as we've learned, are they're very facile. AI doesn't necessarily have the same values that we have. AI doesn't necessarily have, to this day, the same intellect that we have. And so if I let AI pick the prototypical person that it loves, is that person actually going to fit in my organization and do great work? I don't know. I actually think it's pretty bad odds to strip away the humanity. So where does AI help? AI helps when you can take little things that were not useful, right? That were not generating value to anyone and get them to go away. So for me, it's actually somewhat funny. My wife runs a travel business. She plans group trips all around the world for different people. And I cannot stand travel. I hate travel planning. And sometimes she asks me to plan our travel together because she's like, I do this for my job. I'm burnt out. Please just figure it out for us. And in cases like that, I turn to AI because I get no joy out of the work. I don't really have a lot of value out of the work other than I get to go on a trip, but also I don't particularly love travel that much. So I get AI, I give it a prompt and I say, deep research, go figure out, I want to go to Singapore and I want to go to Bali and I want to go here, these dates, figure it out. And it won't be perfect. And so if I could give people just one thing to take away, it's trust but verify, right? Believe that the AI is trying to help you, but you need to go verify the output. It's insufficient to take it at face value for the reasons we've described. But it does take away stuff off my plate that I don't like doing. Right now, we've seen a lot of AI be used to do programmatic SEO because it can just spit out blog after blog after blog. Are those things a paragon of human writing? Is there craft in the same way that someone who, studies English or writes a book is going to have craft? Certainly not. But it turns out Google's PageRank algorithm doesn't care that much about craft. It cares a little bit, but not that much. So I think what we're seeing really, where people are getting ahead, is to be able to force tons of content into the world to get backlinks or traffic or whatever, attention really, because our whole economy has been predicated on attention. Facebook, social media, all this stuff. It's really how can I gather people's attention and then find ways to monetize that by selling them products or services or what have you. So I think in this world, that's really how people are getting ahead. It is, how can I use AI to create tons of stuff that gets attention? And so the video models are getting better now. The, Nano Banana from Gemini has become quite good. And I think that's where people are really using it. But I don't necessarily recommend that because I generally do believe in craft. I think there's some moral and aesthetic fiber to having artisanship in your life. So, I mentioned this board game thing, and initially that was my way to try deep research, which looking back, it's stunning to me. Deep research just came out in February of this year. So it's been not that long of a time in the grand scheme of, technological development. And so I didn't really have any good work projects to use for deep research. So I said, okay, I'm going to try something that I would never do otherwise because I would never have the time. Let's design a board game. So I told deep research, hey, go look at these games, these video games, TV shows, books, things that I love, and figure out what they have in common, right? Read reviews, do all this. And it came back and it said, it looks like these 8 traits are what binds together all the things that you like and find enjoyment in. I said, okay, that's interesting. So then I started chatting to AI for maybe 8 hours. And at the end, it spat out a rule book for a board game. And the board game is a mix of Catan and Risk and all these other classic games that I really love playing, but it's meant to be played fast. Like once you get through a couple rounds, you can play this entire thing in 30 minutes and be done. And it's more satisfying than Catan, I would say, but people will yell at me for that one, I think. But that's really how I started using AI to a massive degree, where I had the AI help write the rules of the game. I helped it design the different card decks and all the effects of the cards in the game. Where the things came in, because again, this was a large set of interlocking rules, AI started confidently getting things wrong. So if I said simulate 3 or 4 rounds of play, it would try and fail miserably. And so then I just said, okay, I need to go to humans. I need to do all the balancing work myself because AI just doesn't get it. So that was an immense amount of human labor. Like I forced every person I know locally to play this game, over and over and over again. I think I've had probably 30 or 40 playtests at this point. And so that, yeah, I don't know. I think that was really interesting. I think the more people can use AI to play and not just for research and not just for work, but if you can do silly things or unexpected things with it, I think you will learn significantly more. And then you'll realize, oh, that's possible, right? And I think many people, again, we've been trained by Google, put question in, get answer out. And in reality, you can do such interesting things with AI. So for example, I wrote a prompt that, this was when Gemini 2 Pro first came out, and I wanted to see how I could benchmark that against other things. And so I wrote a prompt that said, okay, you are going to go consume every public blog, podcast, written artifact, whatever, that the board members of X company have ever done. Go. And then develop it into a cognitive profile. So it did that. It came back and it spat out like different psychometric results for all of these people off, you could pick Google's board of directors, for example. And then you could give it some other artifact, a deck or something that you've done, and say, okay, I work at Google. I am going to present this to my boss. Maybe my boss is Sundar. I'm really senior. I'm going to go present this to Sundar and tell me what feedback the board members would say that I could prep better and have my final output be really optimized. And it would go through line by line and say, okay, the board member 1 said this, board member 2 said this. And it was like approximating the sub-agent army that I was trying to tell you about just in deep research by itself. So you could run 2 deep research prompts back to back, and that would kind of get you there. The way that I've heard to do it now that seems to be most optimal is to actually use Claude Code for anything other than coding. Right? You just build agents that are not code agents. You build agents that are like write a blog agent, editor agent, publish agent, so on and so forth. And that seems to be like the way or the best way of orchestrating this kind of stuff for now. Sorry, that was a very long ramble, but I hope it was interesting.
No, it was very, very interesting. Just to put it into a few words, the main thing you said that the process that you don't really like, that are not that critical to give out to AI, are the best ones to test out and give away and maybe play a bit with it and all so on. And I thought you said a lot of critical stuff, because at the moment, when you think back a few years, when ChatGPT came out for the first time and many people used it for the first time, the possibilities seemed endless for many, many people. And now we are on this Gartner hype cycle, more on the decline than on the upside. So now people are realizing, this whole AI stuff is not as smart or as reasonable as I thought when I try to use it every day or for every research that I do, and so on and so forth. But we shouldn't forget that it could still be a very, very good tool when we use it right. And I think that is the main concern of your work. So when you talk about these deeper researches, the processes that you can just give away to AI? What should you always watch out for to use it to the most efficiency? Is it prompting? Is it to making everything very clear? What is your perspective?
I would generally say it's likely prompting. Yeah, I would say it's probably prompting. So basically, many people write a prompt that is a sentence or a couple sentences. The best prompts that I see are probably more like an entire page or maybe multiple pages of length. And what those prompts include is enormous amounts of context about the job to be done. And I would approach it as if, let's say I am recruiting at the local university and I want to find an intern. I wouldn't tell the intern one sentence of instruction and say, go do things on behalf of my company and represent me and my brand to the world. That's ridiculous. Yeah. This person is bound to fail. Instead, what I would do is give this person lots of documentation, video trainings. I would sit with them. I would help them understand really what are the problems I want you to solve in really minute depth. And from there, I could trust that that person could go solve whatever bounded set of problems that is. Right? One sentence of instruction is insufficient. And so, for example, if I have a blog writing prompt, right? Because like everyone who does it for SEO purposes, you just have to get content out. And in my blog writing prompt, I think it takes up many pages in a Google Doc at this point. But basically, it has positive examples of sentences that look good are like this. Sentences that are bad are like this. It's in this particular one is in a Claude project. And in that project, I also downloaded all of the Wikipedia AI anti-patterns because they maintain a large list. And so I took that and I said, do not ever do any of these patterns in the writing. I put examples of writing that I liked, and that effectively would spit out way higher quality blog posts. Because often you get what I like to call AI smells in the writing, where it's like, it's not this, it's that. Or you get the infamous M dash, right? That's always breaking things up. You get all sorts of different, like the word delve often comes in AI writing. So by different vocabulary and different things, you can tell, oh, this is AI. And if you prompt long enough and explicit enough, you can start making a lot of that go away. And I actually also find that the lower, worse levels of models somehow write better because they're not over-optimized. I think the problem, or what people say is the problem with ChatGPT 5.2, is that they overfit the model in post-training on certain data sets. And that's why it behaves weird, right? It's just like trained to do things that are not necessarily the general use case. And when you go back to the less trained, less refined models, they seem stupider, but somehow they also sound more human.
Yeah, definitely. And when you just told me all about this prompting, I remembered the paper of a colleague. He is way ahead of me in the studies. He is already doing his PhD at the moment, and he put out a paper. Its name is Prompt Solution. So it's about a unified modular framework for this prompt optimization. And he was so kind and told me a lot about his work, actually made a presentation for it. And he put all these large language models against each others with the same prompts, then optimizing those prompts with an algorithm as well, and trying to make it better and better by its own, and not trying to do it on your own with all of the examples. And it actually worked. So they had very, very big insights, and all of that, of course, it would completely blow up the whole episode when we start to talk about that. But there are already people trying to optimize the prompt optimization process. So it is a really, really big deal. And when you have something to do with AI agents or AI in general, examples also for me are the number one thing to go about. The biggest AI use case for me probably is this podcast. So I signed up to a website where I could get a lot of people to see my podcast and try to invite themselves to get on an episode, and just with a little description of themselves, their name, their email, and some related websites. And I didn't look at this Google Sheet for a long time, for more than 6 months. And at the end of that time, I had 90 different entities in this Google Sheet. So I needed to go around them and select each and every one of them. And that's what actually an AI agent did for me. It went over every single line. Told me what it's about. If it thinks it would fit into the show and so on, and then it also writes an email already with the link and everything it needs to. So yeah, it was insane. I went through it. It took about 4 to 5 hours to set this agent up because it was the first agent I ever done. And afterwards, when it was bumping and doing what it should be, I had podcast episode recordings every single day. 2 of them actually for the last 2 months, only because of one AI agent that sorted out 90 different contacts and wrote them an email, and a unique one as well, not a big one.
Yeah.
And I think it could have been a lot better with examples, because at the moment it just took everybody, and sometimes some recordings didn't really work as good as others, but the main recordings were beautiful. And all in all, it was a great success, and AI could be so much more. But of course, not everybody has a podcast out there, and not everybody needs to go through a big contact list. Many just want to find a job, or to build a resume a bit easier, or to make life challenges a bit easier. Let it be the grocery list or doing a calendar. What are the best tools to work with AI to make your life a little bit easier?
I honestly think most people can still get a lot of value out of the main foundational chatbots themselves. Obviously, there are domain-specific tools that we've talked about for different things, like, you might have a podcast agent that you build or you buy from someone. My wife uses an email agent that's provided by a company called Jace, Jace. And that one is very high quality. So, but other than that, we try to just build projects in our main AI tools, because my viewpoint is, why would I pay for someone else who's just building on top of ChatGPT, right? Or just building on top of Gemini? I can access the root Gemini, and what I need to believe about the person if I'm going to buy from them is that somehow they are better at prompting than me.
Yeah.
And in some cases, I believe that. In many cases, I do not believe that. It is my job to be good at prompting, right? I teach people how to use AI. And if I could not write very compelling prompts that got me the results I wanted 99% of the time, I probably should quit and go do something else, right? I would be selling a very bad quality product.
Yeah.
So really, for me, it does come down to the foundation models. And over time, I've determined, how do I like to use the different models for different purposes? And so for me, Claude is a writing model, right? If I want to write blogs or things like that, I go to Claude. If I want image generation, I go to Gemini, because I will say the new Nano Banana with Pro 3 is unbelievably good. And then for ChatGPT is like my general purpose. If I need deep research, or if I just want to chat through an idea, I would go there. But with specific regard to problems that one might want to solve, you mentioned resumes or finding a job. I have a prompt that I read a newsletter every week. And so in my newsletter, I include some interesting jobs. And I used to go find them by hand, which was horribly time consuming, and often the links would expire and whatnot. And so now I just go to ChatGPT. I say, hey, deep research, go find me jobs that meet this list of 10, 20 criteria. You have to give me the exact URL of the applicant tracking system. It has to be these disciplines or functions. It has to pay in this range. It has to be remote. It has to, whatever, on and on and on. And then it goes out and does it. It fetches me 50 roles, and not all of them will be perfect or even good, but half of them will be good. And in my newsletter, I only post 3 a week. So it does the job I need it to do pretty quickly. And you can surface, right? If I tell it I want a job that the salary range contains $150,000, because for many people that would be a great job to have, it goes and it does it, right? It finds a job that pays that much money, and often they're jobs you might not expect, right? That, like, I saw a compliance officer role that paid a lot, and I was like, Didn't think that would be true, but I guess so. And then, you mentioned people writing their resume. When I coach people on resumes, because obviously I'm writing a book, coaching people and helping people has been a large part of my life. I ask the AI not to just spit out resumes over and over again. I basically try and conform it to the job description by doing one thing. I put in the job description and I put in the resume, and I say, first tell me, do the bullets in this resume match the requirements of the job description? Score that and tell me why, and be a cynical asshole business person. Or you might have to bleep that out, but
no, it's all good.
That telling it to be a meaner person with worse traits, I find actually gets you a more neutral answer, right? Because it tries to be sycophantically helpful, so you have to make it more negative to bring it back to the middle. That helps. And then the other thing that I like to do is in voice mode, I have the AI go through every bullet with me, and I say, for every bullet, let's answer 2 questions. 1, can a 13-year-old understand what I did in this bullet? 2, is it clear what the impact of doing that thing was on the job? And so if you could do those things together, I call that commercial rigor. It's one of the main thrusts of the book. But basically, most people cannot situate their work in terms of the impact it had on the broader organization. And so often someone will say, I worked in retail, and I was at the shops or the shopping mall, and I sold t-shirts. Great. I know what you did, right? I have an understanding of the physical thing you did. Why did that matter? And so this example is actually my little sister, who is significantly younger than me. She's still in university, and her summer job was working in retail. And she was asking me, hey, I need to redo my resume. How do I do this? And she initially wrote it and say, I sold t-shirts at this store at the mall. And I said, well, okay, let's do the math. How many t-shirts did you sell per week? What was the average cost of those? How many weeks did you work there? And we basically multiplied out the average volume, or the total, value, cumulative value of all the t-shirts. And it was something like $200,000 worth of t-shirts over the 2 summers that she worked there. Yeah, it was crazy. It was really, really nuts. And people just don't realize they can do that, right? They can do some math. And I think getting AI to do the exercise with you is very helpful. And so actually in the book, I devoted a lot of time to writing out the prompts. And so if in April, when it comes out, people buy the book, there's a prompt for everything, right? A prompt for outreach to someone that you might want to talk to, for the resume, for the cover letter, for interview prep, for, phone screen preparation. I've figured out how to prompt all these things to, I wouldn't say perfect degree, but like 85% correct degree.
Okay.
And I have to disclaim that because your mileage may vary,
Yeah, so if you are listening to this episode, the book is already out. It actually is coming out right now. So if you want it, your best way to get it is...
You can find it on Amazon.
On Amazon. Rahul, thank you so much. Where can people also go to get into your coaching or just to keep up with your everyday life?
Yeah, so my company's website is aiamerica.co. And there's a way to get time on my calendar there. You can email me. It's all sort of on that website. And then, of course, I'm on LinkedIn. And so people can find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much for your time. If you want to get the book is in the description below. So yeah, Rahul, thank you. It was just a pleasure to talk to you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.